Hey there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome and thanks for joining me. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that you may have never thought you would hear from me, which is counting the uncountable. Which is kind of a little bit of a misnomer, but the whole idea here is, particularly in a slow blues, when you have slower tempos, it's very easy to sort of cram a bunch of notes in a beat and make it really uncountable in a lot of ways. There's simply just not enough syllables, not enough ways to break things down. It would just be really tedious to play something that is effectively a flurry. It's play it as fast as you can, or as you'll see, kind of aim to get sort of this many notes in this beat. So the lick that I played on the way in, I stole it from Stevie Ray Vaughan fair and square, but I want to show you how I would break this down. Now, what may not be immediately obvious, but should be as you get used to looking at these things, this is the way things are supposed to be written. Now, admittedly, when I find things online, on any one of a variety of tab sites or things, not that I want to throw Guitar Pro under the bus, but it's not always so good about more complex rhythms. These are very, very complex rhythms. And unfortunately, sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to do what I'm going to show you how to do because things aren't necessarily written the way they ought to be. So ideally, though, you've got to look for, full beats. Okay, so what we're going to basically do is break down. We have 12/8 time, which, as you may know, is basically 4 sets of 3 beats. So each eighth note gets 1 count. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so we basically have, if you write them out as eighth notes, or you could write them out like this, we have 4 sets of 3 eighth notes in each measure. And we have a little bit of a pickup here with another couple of eighth notes. Okay, so we count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's not necessarily the only way to count this stuff. Some people will count 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. I always say, I don't care if you call them, 1 pears grapes. It doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you have the counts. Okay, and you're going to come in from say beat 4 and so then we will start, because as is typically the case, this lick does not start on beat 1. It has a little bit of a pickup to it. Okay, so you might say, hey, well, that's all well and good, but what do we do with that? How do we break that down? And that's what's important. We are going to break it down 1 beat at a time. We're going to tackle this 4 beats or 3 beats plus a little bit more lick 1 beat at a time. Let me show you how. As I mentioned, you have your measure broken down. Well, if you take a look, you can see these beam groups. That is the first beat. This beam group here, this is the second beat. This beam group here is the third beat. This rest is the 4th beat. So at least that part's easy. Okay, this beam group here obviously is the pickup to what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and I'm going to go, okay, I have, a bend up and then another note, and they're all quick. These are 16th notes. These go fast. And then I've got this 8, this G on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. That's extended a little bit. I can kind of tell just by looking, it only has 1 beam. It doesn't have as much going on there. So I can assume that that's going to be held out longer. So I'm not really going to count that. I'm just going to play it very quickly, and I'm just going to kind of hold the last note until it's time for the next beat, which is right here, right? There's the start of that beat, there's the start of that beat, there's the start of that beat, there's the start of that beat. Okay, so I'm going to play that first little bit. Now the pickup is fairly easy. it's 2 eighth notes. I can count that, 4 and duh. But when I get to that next part, and I just have to play that last little, that quick little bit there, I'm not gonna wanna try to count that. Instead, I'm basically just gonna go, and I'm just gonna play that pretty much as quick as I can. There's the 8th fret on the 1st string bent up, then the 6th, then the 8. And I'm gonna kind of hold that, and I'm just gonna wait. So I have 3 and 4 and 1, 2. And at beat 2, I gotta go on to the next thing, okay? But I'm not counting any of the stuff in between. Now, if I look at that next beat, I have a lot of stuff, right? I have the 6th fret on the 2nd string, pulls off. Then I have the 5th fret on the 3rd string, bends up and back, pulls off to the 3rd fret, down to the 5th fret on the 4th string, back to the 3rd fret on the 3rd string. So again, that all is just gonna kind of go by fast. So the first thing that you're gonna have to do is get the basic, finger pattern. Kind of get to the point where you can play that fairly comfortably. Once you can kind of do that, you have to sort of get each beat a little bit under your fingers, because what we're going to do is we're going to then turn on a metronome and just sort of try to line them up. So again, that pickup, 4 and duh, and I can count that, that's fine. The second beat, right? And I'm not going to count that. I'm just going to get to where I can play it. I know that I've got fast, and then I got to hold that next part. I can tell that it's got a little bit of time. Then I have something where it looks like it's just all fast. And that's that second beat there. And then I have the third beat, which again has a bend at the top. The 5th fret bends up, and then I have the 3rd fret on the 1st string, and then the 3rd fret on the 3rd string. And again, you can tell because of having these double beams, right, versus the single beam, and the dot next to it means that it goes even longer. All of those kinds of things give you an indication that you need to play the first part fast and hold out the last half of that beat. So I know this is not an exact science. I'm doing my absolute best to take what is far from an exact science and get it as close to an exact science as I can so that you can actually learn the stuff. It's really, really hard to play this sort of thing because of the fact that there's very little to no beat structure. But if you can learn these little tiny pieces, right? It's just one beat. The longest pattern is that, right? That second beat. If you can get to where you can do each of those little patterns, and then you can sort of maybe do them one after the other, right? You don't necessarily have to do it at time or at tempo or anything, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab a metronome, and we're going to set that metronome to allow us to play along with this whole thing. So I have just a basic, Boss metronome, absolutely nothing fancy at all. Many people use metronome apps in their phones nowadays. I just don't have my phone handy. I prefer old school metronomes. Now, here's what I'm going to do, though, that's kind of unique. This is a 12/8 feel, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and I am going to set my metronome for 3/4 time, 3 beats per measure. Okay, so I'm going to go to select, I'm going to break it down to 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I do that because I can go nice and slow, and that's kind of the key here. So I'm gonna bring this down. Right now it's what it considers a quarter note at 70 beats per minute. Okay, so you get, that's like 1 and 2 and 3. That's pretty darn slow. That's probably going to work out all right for what we're trying to do. So let's see if I put that on 4 and 1, 2. Now the trick here is I got to try to make everything kind of line up. Okay, so I have to be able to hear that metronome very well. 1 and I'm going to skip ahead, and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4 and all right. Again, I'm just kind of feeling it. I'm not counting it. I'm just kind of feeling it. But where I am really paying attention is starting off at that first 8th fret bend at the beginning of the I'll say the second measure there, where that's supposed to be right on the beat. 2, 3, 3, 3. I was a little ahead that time. Okay, so when I did this part, when I get back to that 5th fret, I need to be back on the beat. Okay, so again, I'll try to sort of make it work out. 3 and 4 and okay, so every time I landed right on the beat. So 3 and 4 and and obviously that's far from an exact science. Sometimes at really, really slow tempos, it's harder to keep up. Because of the fact that I can play that at full speed, it's actually kind of hard for me to really, really, really slow it down like that. But for many folks, that will probably be right in the ballpark, right? You're down at probably half or a third of the actual speed of the recording. And of course, you play it until you kind of get to where you're landing on those beats. And at that point, when you start nailing it more often than not, jack it up 10 or 20 beats a minute, try it again. When you get that, jack it up 10 or 20 beats a minute. Before you know it, okay, if you're doing 3/4 time at 180 beats per minute, that's the same as 60 beats a minute in 12/8 time. 1 and 2 and so that's that slow blues tempo. So if you get it up to around 150, 160, 170, 180, you're there. You're playing it as fast as probably it was originally recorded. Some slow blues tunes run closer to 70 or 72, but in general, seems to be between about 56 and 64. That's a ballpark at best, okay? But it gives you an idea. But that's, 1 and 2 and with those subdivisions. If you have your metronome counting in 3/4, 1 and 2 and it's going to be a much faster beep. But hopefully your metronome will do like mine and can accent that first beat of each measure. That's why I set it for 3/4. Now some metronomes are really fancy and you can set them for 12/8 time and you can tell it to go tick, 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 tick and accent every beat. But you're going to have to put it at like, let's see, 70 divided by 3, 65, it's like 20, 22, 23. Many metronomes won't go that slow. If yours will, awesome. That's fabulous. But the main thing is to utilize those beats, right? The right on the downbeat. All these spots right here where you can take that time and you can take your energy and you can line things up right on the beat. That's what's going to make it possible. If you don't at least get those first notes of each cluster lined up on the beat, it's probably not going to work out very well. And it's going to be really hard to learn and it's going to be even harder to play. If you want to be able to play it along with the original recording, this is an absolute must because this is how you're going to be able to keep up with that original recording. So again, I know this is not an exact science and this is kind of a difficult thing. Learning these fast flurry type of slow blues licks arguably one of the most difficult things that I try to teach people to do. It's really, really hard to play this way because of the lack of time. So this is really the best that you could do in many of these situations. There's no way you're going to count all these 16ths and 16th triplets and all this kind of stuff. It just gets to be too much. Now, of course, if you've got straight eighth notes, count that. You absolutely should. But if it gets to some weird triplets and all kinds of stuff like that that's really, really tough to play, just sort of try to aim at it and just sort of get close. And if you're getting each beat to line up, the stuff in the middle kind of has to fit in. It kind of has to go where it needs to go. So, hope you dig that. As always, if you've got some blues guitar playing friends, please feel free to share this video with them. I am Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed, and I will leave links near this video for links to my website and to sign up for my email list and all that kind of stuff. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care.